Enron was the world's biggest and richest company in the late 1990s. Its net value reached $70 billion over the course of a decade and crashed and burned in a single year of savage media coverage and brutal criminal investigations. It's important to understand how individual arrogance, the corporate recklessness, and U.S. greed collaboratively caused the biggest economic scandal of its kind.
Enron was founded in 1985 by Ken Lay as a natural gas company in the Pacific Northwest. Around that time, the energy markets of the U.S. were being deregulated, that is, transitioning from government control to a free market. Lay hired visionary Jeff Skilling, under whose leadership the company moved to Houston in 1990. Enron became a national middleman for the electricity markets in the newly deregulated states. Companies would sell electricity to Enron, who would then sell the electricity to individual customers, charging everyone along the way. This innovative approach led to wide critical acclaim for Enron, with many praising its success, including Fortune, which called it most admired, and named it to the top 100 companies to work for. However, this acclaim led to a highly competitive environment within the company. The company's stock price was plastered over the walls of the building. Enron executives created the Performance Review Committee, which periodically graded the company's employees and fired the lowest portion without further consideration. Enron's culture became cutthroat and unforgiving, rewarding those who took risks and bent the rules. As internet companies grew more popular in the late 90s, Enron launched Enron Online, an energy trading e-commerce site, which was largely successful. Enron also used this platform to launch high-speed trading services for bandwidth, advertising, and even weather, although those all failed and put Enron in debt. However, Enron was able to write these losses off as gains by using a new system called mark-to-market accounting. With traditional accounting, a company is valued off of its past transactions. With mark-to-market accounting, companies are valued based on the present and on future potential. Enron abused it and recorded profits from recently signed contracts and recently built factories, even though they were not actually returning profit yet. In addition to falsifying their accounts, Enron CFO Andy Fastow created special-purpose entities to hide Enron's failures. These were mini companies that would essentially buy Enron's liabilities and debt, thus removing them from Enron's books. LJM, one of the many SPEs, was run by Fastow and had over 96 major U.S. banks and firms investing in it. Since Fastow was solely in charge of this, he was able to get away with skimming money off of each transaction, totaling over $30 million in profits for himself over time. Additionally, Enron manipulated the energy market to earn money at immense cost to others. Starting in late 2000, Enron would purchase electricity futures and then periodically shut down power plants in California. The widespread power outages caused the futures to increase in value, which Enron then sold for a profit. Throughout the late 90s, Enron used these methods to record astounding revenue, and its stock price continued to rise. By late 2000, top executives at Enron, including Lay, Fastow, and Skilling, saw the company's losses and failures and sold their respective stocks, cashing in millions simultaneously. Lay would continuously assure the investors that everything was fine and that investing in Enron was a good idea. Yet Enron's stock started to fall anyway. Top analysts began to doubt the quality and legitimacy of Enron's transactions, and a Fortune reporter by the name of Bethany McLean published an article questioning the value of Enron's stock, causing it to drop even farther. As the stock went sub $20, executives continued to cash in their stakes. On November 28, 2001, news of Enron's troubles became public, and the stock quickly plummeted to sub $1. Lay, Skilling, Fastow, and other executives were charged with a smorgasbord of crimes, including fraud, conspiracy, and insider trading.
However, there are more questions to ask than were answered by the court case. Were the executives making moral decisions? Whose fault was it, the individuals, the company culture, or the system of capitalism as a whole? What were the more nuanced causes of Enron's failure? Throughout Enron's history, Lay hired people who were willing to take risks and toe the line. The people he formed his team with, Skilling, Fastow, and more, were only concerned with making money and nourished a cutthroat survival of the fittest culture that encouraged employees to break the law. Skilling created a wild, risk-taking environment by often taking dirt biking and racing trips in exotic, far-out places. More often than not, the men were hospitalized for near-fatal injuries from collisions and crashes. These stories became urban legends at Enron, and the team of men were soon idolized as macho men who knew no limits. Recklessness and risky behavior began to be seen as a positive and led to an unhealthy company culture. The culture created by the executives led to incredibly immoral decisions by many of the lower-tier employees. Employees on the Enron trading floor caused the massive California blackouts in late 2000, yet another example of risky and reckless behavior incentivized by lay and skilling. Perhaps most interesting, however, is the involvement of other U.S. corporations and banks in all of this drama. Enron had connections with hundreds of major corporations that made Enron's most diabolical lies and schemes possible. Arthur Andersen, a highly regarded auditing corporation, was tasked with reviewing and validating all of Enron's books and records. Instead, Andersen covered up Enron's mistakes and was later charged with obstruction of justice for shredding and burning Enron's most criminalizing documents, and soon dissolved. All told, the question who should we blame does not have a simple answer. Enron's top executives were certainly corrupt and contributed to the company's fall. Yet so many other people and entities had a role in causing it. Lay, Skilling, and Fastow were encouraged by the market's competitive, profit-focused, and immoral environment, and all perpetrated these ideals within Enron. The individuals, the company's culture, and the systematic problems of the U.S. market all played a part in this monumental scandal.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they stay there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there.
Well, geez, I don't know exactly when it was. It must have been in the early 90s or something. We met, my partners and I, we were at a conference actually, and it was in Houston. And the next talk was going to be with Enron, and we heard that they were hotshot people, and what do we know? So we sat in the audience and listened to them, and they were pitching what their business model was. And it was like, well, you know, Department A makes some money, and then they hand it, and then they book it as revenue in Department B, and then Department B sells it to Department C, and then Department C sells it back to Department A, and we're making a lot of money doing this, going around in a circle. And we were like, wait a minute, that's not a business model, that's a Ponzi scheme. So we met with them after the conference, and we're like, and they're like, well, we think we can use your software to help optimize your supply chain. We can't use our software. It's not a supply chain. It's a Ponzi scheme. Now, of course, we didn't say this to Enron that it was a Ponzi scheme, but that's what it seemed like to us. And we were like kind of glad that they went away and stopped asking us to use our software.
So, do you feel like you could have stopped the big scandal that tore
we
America
probably
apart?
could have. If we had just had enough energy, we could have brought them to their knees, but we decided not to. No, but like, this happened a number of times, like getting in bed with companies that were kind of icky. We just wouldn't do it, you know. We just, like, tobacco manufacturers would come and we could make another $1 billion with your software. And no, it's too icky. We don't want to work with you. So that's one nice thing about working in your own company.
Cool.
Did you get the scratch on the top of my head?
Yeah, that's what part.